Hello, my friends. Assalamu alaikum. Let's study one more thought from the amazing Quran by Dr. Gary Miller. He writes, a few years ago, a group of men in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, collected all of the verses in the Quran which discuss embryology, that is, the growth of the human being in the womb. They said, here is what the Quran says. Is it the truth? In essence, they took the advice of the Quran, ask the men who know. They chose, as it happened, a non-Muslim who is a professor of embryology at the University of Toronto. His name is Keith Moore, and he is the author of textbooks on embryology, a word expert on the subject. They invited him to Riyadh and said, this is what Quran says about your subject. Is it true? What can you tell us? While he was in Riyadh, they gave him all the help that he needed in translation and all of the cooperation for which he asked. And he was so surprised at what he found that he changed his textbooks. In fact, in the second edition of one of his books called Before We Are Born, in the section about the history of embryology, he included some material that was not in the first edition because of what he found in the Quran was ahead of its time, and that those who believe in the Quran know what other people do not know. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Keith Moore for a television presentation, and we talked a great deal about this. It was illustrated by slides and so on. He mentioned that some of the things that the Quran states about the growth of the human being were not known until 30 years ago. In fact, he said that one item in particular, the Quran's description of the human being as a leech-like clot, alaka, chapter 40, verse 67, was new to him. But when he checked on it, he found that it was true. So he added it to his book. He said, I never thought of that before. And he went to the zoology department and asked for a picture of a leech. When he found that it looked just like the human embryo, he decided to include both pictures in one of his textbooks. Although the aforementioned example of man researching information contained in the Quran deals with a non-Muslim, it is still valid because he is one of those who is knowledgeable in the subject being researched. Had some layman claimed that what the Quran says about embryology is true, then one would not necessarily have to accept his word. However, because of the high position, respect, and esteem man gives scholars, one naturally assumes that if they research a subject and arrive at a conclusion based on that research, then the conclusion is valid. Thank you, my friends. Assalamu alaikum.